Damien, welcome.
Morning, Joe. How are you?
What an absolute sham this title race is. They should all be ashamed of themselves. They should just scrap the league. We'll go again next year.
Au contraire, my friend. I was enthused last night. I actually went to bed really, really excited because I feel like we're going to get a title race. Because this season just seemed to be meandering. There's nothing really happening. Statistically, it's a really, really poor season, and it would have been a travesty. I know this won't count for Arsenal fans, but a travesty if Arsenal just waltzed their way to a Premier League title. But they're going to get them under the gun now. I hope, I think, I feel that that's going to happen. So we will get some enjoyment this season.
Yeah, but they're going to slow bike their race to a title race. They're still going to win the league. It's just they deserve zero credit for it. You know what I mean? So City from their last 15 points have taken six, but happily for them, Arsenal from their last 12 points have taken five. They're both just really, really poor sides in the context of the City team who did four in a row, that peak of Liverpool against City, Conte's Chelsea, Mourinho's Chelsea, back to the Ferguson United teams, back to the Invincibles, etc. This is just such an average year. It kind of frustrates me that either of these two are going to win the league.
Yeah, look, it happens, right? In a few years' time, you get those Premier League shows, and you sit down sometimes in the morning and you watch a rerun of the 2008 season, and you're like, oh my God, you remember that? And you see players that made you feel a certain type of way emotionally. I'm not sure this season was ever going to
No.
have an extended Premier League years program. But look, you got to dissect both teams. Man City are struggling; they just can't seem to get it together. Whereas I think Arsenal are just probably the best version of what Arsenal can be. They are trying to be exactly what they are. They're playing the game a certain way. If City can somehow win this title, it'll be from an Arsenal point of view, it will be a travesty. But City will come into training this morning just with renewed vigor. I would imagine Pep Guardiola has been frustrated. He's been angry. Probably toying with packing it in last week after the derby and the Bodo Glimt game. I mean, those thoughts must have crossed his mind. But no, you look at they've got Gahey in the building, they've got Semenyo in the building, and somehow, I'm not sure how, but they are only 4 points off Arsenal. And I'd say he cannot believe with how bad they've been. Whereas I think Arsenal are probably as good as they can be. That's just the way they play the game. That's how he wants to be. So they are what they are.
Yeah, I presume Pep is saying we have been so bad. And look, I mean, come on. To go into Arsenal for a second, so everybody's saying about Arsenal, to defend them a little bit, everybody is saying about Arteta, he's so conservative. They're just so overly conservative. Like when I saw the teams come up pre-game and he goes with Rice and Zubamendi and Odegaard, and then ahead him Saka, Jesus, Trossard. Look, I think like a lot of people have a certain groff for Eze. I'd like him in the team somewhere, but I was still looking at a team. It's not like he's gone with six henchmen there who can't play football. And people are saying he's so conservative and he's got to throw people on. There's a lot of attacking minded players there. Now, maybe the way they're playing is far too conservative, but I do think some of the criticism of Arteta's team selections and substitutes is it's become a little bit cliched in OTT. It doesn't
Yeah.
stand up to total scrutiny. Like
Yeah.
if you've midfield three of Odegaard, who's very front facing, Rice, to be fair, has license, Zubamendi, and then Saka, Jesus, Trossard. Like that's not a guy who's shutting up
Yeah.
shop. Conservative. I think that's a bit OTT.
Yeah, like I mean, he's gone with the foreign players as well. Like Eze statistically hasn't been great. He had a bright start, but he's kind of drifted a little bit. Martinelli's been good, but equally as Trossard, and Saka's probably always going to play. You just got to look at Arsenal. I was watching him yesterday. He obviously prioritizes the team, right? So he doesn't fancy individuals. He doesn't want, an outstanding individual. If he has an off day, then the whole team struggles, right? So you got to look at Arsenal in and out of possession, right? So in possession. They want to create an environment where it's very, very difficult. They make it very uncomfortable for the opposition. So they pin you back, and then the centre backs ring it, and they create periods of sustained pressure, and they don't let you out. And the centre backs are brilliant at that, at winning back the second balls, and it's recycled, and they just create an environment where you don't get a breather, and it's almost like the weight of that Arsenal team bearing down on you, you crack eventually, right? And then out of possession, when the opposition are building up, they just go man for man, and they just go high energy, high intensity, and it's the group in and out of possession. It's the team. The teams get the win. And Manchester United stood up to it yesterday. You have to give them that. Now, the Zubimendi giveaway was, I think, the pivotal moment in the game because Arsenal were implementing their game plan. They're not swashbuckling, eye-catching. They never get you on the edge of your seat. They're just a very, very good team. Physically, they're incredible as well. They look really fit. They look really sharp. They look really hungry. But that Zubimendi moment just seemed to rattle Arsenal for every reason. And it happened a few weeks ago. Again, Gabriel had one against Bournemouth. Remember with that square ball across, got cut out. They scored as well. And for whatever reason, it just rattled them and it gave Man United the impetus to get back into this game. So you look at this Arsenal team, there's nothing like I was watching them yesterday and I was like, there's no redeeming feature, with the exception of two centre backs. I think this team is built all on their centre backs. They are incredible. Honestly, you take those two centre backs, right, and you put them in Man City's team, the league is done. They're out of sight. You take those two centre backs, you put them in Liverpool's team. I think Liverpool are top of the league, right? Because with the attacking threats that Liverpool have and Man City have, if they were capable of defending, because Van Dijk and Konate have been really poor, and City have been really poor at the back as well. That's why. But Arsenal don't seem to have the same flair, they don't seem to have the same attacking impetus. It's just the weight, and then they always have set pieces to fall back on. Because if someone is standing up to them in terms of their build-up play, then they could just batter you with set plays. So, like I said, there's not a lot of redeeming features with our Arsenal team. Rice is a decent player, but top end of the pitch, then it's just very, team orientated.
Yeah, it's interesting because they should have lots of redeeming features. I mean, you should be looking at that right-hand side of Odegaard behind Saka, and it should be terrorising defenders.
But that's not been a good years gone by. It was Saka had a really poor year. I checked his stats there this morning. He's got 4 goals and 4 assists in 21 Premier League games. He's been really, really poor. And over the years, we used to love watching Odegaard drift over, and Saka would bounce passes inside, and then you'd Ben White joining in, and they just create that big overload, and everything seemed to come down that side. And you had Martinelli kind of standing out in the left wing. And I always kind of thought like they needed to get a better left winger in it, but that's just dried up now on that right hand side, and they're playing fine. There's just no X factor. There's no spark with this Arsenal team. Declan Rice obviously makes it difficult for any team to play against Arsenal because of his physical prowess and the amount of ground that he covers. And Zubimendi's been a tidy addition, not eye catching, but he's been a tidy addition. But for me, the only thing that this Arsenal team will be remembered for is those two centre backs. They are incredible.
Yeah, what's gone wrong with Odegaard? Because I mean, he's such talent and he's like captain, so obviously he's got something about him as a personality. And yet, increasingly, the criticism of Odegaard would be, particularly in the big games, too much time, coming deep, nice touches, enjoying himself, but actually not affecting the game further up the pitch enough.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to understand what Arteta's looking for from him. Maybe he has gone down this road of less individual bits of skill. I don't want you guys putting the ball at risk. We're just going to work the ball into certain areas. We're going to get crosses in the box. We're going to ring it. We're going to pick up the second balls. I don't want you making these central midfield players like Odegaard in the 10 position. They make what they call corner runs, which essentially runs towards a corner flag. So it's like just a run out, and you often see Saka just roll a straight one down the line, or sometimes the ball gets played in and he picks up a second ball. So he's saying, no, I don't want you making those runs now. I just want you to ring the box, because Saka's going to get his cross in, pick the ball up, and just sustain the attack. And it's just the sheer weight of the volume of this Arsenal team bearing down on anyone seems to be too much for anyone to handle. So perhaps there's been a structural change. I don't see as much freedom, as much interchanging. I think last year with Arsenal, there was a very much you can change positions. If you look and someone's in your position, just go and find a spare spot, right? And you'd see Calafiori joining in. He might end up being a 10. You see Jesus over on the left wing, and then you might see Martinelli at the 9. I just don't see that anymore with Arsenal. I don't see that fluidity.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because that's why when Eze joined, and especially when he gave him a couple of games at 10, and Eze's doing Eze things, I thought, this team's they're just about to really just stamp their authority all over this league, and he's gonna flourish. The defense will still be fine, and the handbrake's coming off a little bit. The confidence will grow, like that kind of, remember that Mourinho period where Robin and Duff just caught fire and the whole thing lit up. And I thought that's where we were headed with Eze, and then Eze's just, you're out of the team.
Yeah, he could be a little too off the cuff for what he's looking at the minute. Maybe Arteta's got a little bit tense, and he's just gone, look, we can keep clean sheets, and I fancy us to get goals, i.e. a moment of magic or a set piece or something, or just sheer volume of attacks. Because Eze is a field player. I mean, you watch him at Crystal Palace. If he felt like if he felt the vibe of a game, he'd say like, I'm going to make these runs, and he's finding a bit of joy. And it's very much like whatever you feel. You see a pocket of space, you see them defending a certain way, and you feel that if you don't want to play in the 10, you want to pull them outside because they're playing like a box in midfield. It's a bit congested. Then you can just pull on the outside of those boxes and just get on the ball, and somebody else will come in. And that fluidity is just not there with them. And I don't know if that's planned, if that's just they're within sight of the title now and they've just got a little bit tense. But the way they're playing, I mean, it's going to be difficult for them now because I think City are going to get pressure on them. I think they're going to they'll be training this morning, Man City, and I don't think they'll say much to each other, but I think they'll be like, oh my goodness, like we are right in this, somehow we're right in this. Now, obviously they've still got to do it. But I think the additions in January have been excellent, Semenyo and Gehi, and I think they will get ahead of steam up at some point.
Yeah, it's very confusing as a final thought on Arsenal because at various points in this season, it has felt completely done. Like as recently even as, when they beat Aston Villa 4-1 on the 30th of December, that just felt game over. And then the following game away to Bournemouth, it was a really good 3-2 win. It was kind of championship winning 3-2 win away from home. And since then, the 0-0 with Liverpool, the 0-0 with Forest, and now the United game. But then in the midst of it, like they're scoring 3 against Chelsea in the League Cup, they're scoring 3 against Inter Milan, they're putting 4 past Portsmouth in the FA Cup. And, the nerves question is being asked. Like, are they nervous? That's why they're doing well against Inter when they're already through FA Cup. They can express themselves. Chelsea League Cup, not as nervous. I would say of Arsenal, though, that first 30 minutes, it goes to your point about the Zubimendi mistake being a pivotal, just a mood changer. First 30 minutes, to be fair to Arsenal, they didn't start like a nervous team. Like, they just bossed the game in a very assured way.
Yeah, they pinned Man United in and they were recycling the ball really well. They were going down. And Man United stood up very, very well. We can move on to them, but the amount of times that Saka got the ball, I think after about 15 minutes, actually to pause the TV and have a look at it because it was Dorgu who he was taking on, and Dorgu was playing left side midfield, and Shaw was playing left back, and I kept thinking, is he playing wing back? And I just had to just rewind a little bit and just double check. I knew it was a 4-4, a 4-5-1, or a 4-4-1-1. But Saka just kept lining up Dorgu, which means Dorgu was back and Shaw was tucked in. So Man United were covered up on the ropes. They were really protecting themselves, and Arsenal were having a little bit of joy, and it was becoming a little bit difficult for them. But the goal came just again from the sheer weight of pressure, just like they just pile in on top of you, and they don't give you a break. And I think a lot of that goes unnoticed, that every time you clear the ball, it comes straight back. As a defense, you just get worn out, you get tired, it becomes very, very difficult. And then mistakes like Martinez getting pushed into his own 6-yard box and he's a little swipe and hits off a standing leg. Those types of mistakes are what Arsenal create. It is unfortunate from a Man United point of view, but Arsenal will say that we've created that mistake with just the sheer volume of weight that we have.
Last time we talked was the morning Ruben Amorim was sacked.
Yeah, good times.
Good times. By the way, the last goal just exposes what an absolute grim, just like load of guff that whole era was. By the way, everything he was talking about. You're looking at Mainu. You're like, this guy. He was just terrible. Sorry, I don't want to do that. Like, we don't need to get into that again.
No, listen. I'm actually really pleased. I'm really pleased for Michael Carrick as well because I do like the cut of him. He's calm. He's assured. Came into a firestorm in getting the job, right? I mean, he just for his staff alone. I mean, that was so unfair what happened to him there. Just picking Johnny Evans and Woodgate, I mean, just all of a sudden you're walking, but he handles it really well. He just stands on the touchline and he looks calm, he looks assured. Now, what I will say is the 2 games he's had, City and Arsenal, are set up beautifully for him, because you're playing against 2 teams that have the lion's share of the ball. Now, by the way, I'm delighted for Manchester United. They deserve that after the year they put down against Ruben Amorim. So I'm not having to go at Man United. There's bigger tests for them coming up the road. How do they fare when they're the team with the lion's share of the ball? So Arsenal, huge chunk of possession, City, huge chunk of possession, and the United get the counter-attack. And I think that role is, the way Mbeumo and Bruno Fernandes are lining up now is just a thing of beauty. You have to give them that. Yeah. And like I said, the back four get to stay intact. Harry Maguire is insulated. He's got his 2 number 6s in front of him. They don't vacate it very often. The spaces have now been reduced for Casemiro. He doesn't have to cover huge swathes of ground. Like I said, Harry Maguire is insulated. Luke Shaw's insulated. Hence the reason Dorgu's coming back with Saka. Invariably, Shaw should be out one-on-one and Dorgu might be covering on the inside or wherever it might be. But, it's set up beautifully. And then in Brian Mbeumo, they've got an absolute diamond, like a real diamond of a player. And the way he's linking up with Bruno and the understanding that they have, the ability they have to counter-attack out of that is fantastic.
They're an old married couple, those two. They are
bickering.
They're bickering all the time. There was the one against City where Fernandes gave it across. They won it high and gave it to Mbeumo, and he wanted Mbeumo to come on to it. And they went at it for It just kept going on. And then last night they're going at it again. But obviously when they have the ball, they're very much in sync. Like Fernandez released behind Mbuemo, that's a complete game changer. Like that he's
Oh,
wasting 6 months to a year as one of the sixes. I mean, I'm sure, like, it must have occurred to a lot of people in the stadium yesterday. Why did we sign Gyökeres and not the Mbuemo guy? He's a game changer. He's a phenomenon.
yeah. Listen, his ability to work two centre backs. Now, I think Arsenal's two centre backs are probably the best in Europe, to be honest with you. But I mean, the way he still worked them and he made it difficult for them, and a lot of skewed clearances, I mean, he sticks that ass into people and he just pins centre backs, strong centre backs, and he squats down and he's very hard to shift. And he's lightning quick as well. And he looks really fit, sharp, and hungry. And the runs he makes, I mean, they are chiming beautifully, the two of them, Bruno. And it is just a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
The other two just get to sit, Mainu and Casemiro, and protect the two centre backs. Lissandro Martinez is protected as well. And I think it's fair as well. They've got a bloody diamond in the goalkeeper as well. I mean, they found him from somewhere. He is, I don't want to say it, but I think they finally fixed their goalkeeping issues because he looks every inch of a Man United level goalkeeper. In fairness to him, he's come in and just assured everybody, and he looks very, very confident.
Yeah. A lot of what you're talking about there is all just very common sense stuff,
Mm-mm.
It always struck me when people used to talk about Ancelotti and, well, what does he really do? And you'd watch his teams and they just sort of make sense. You know what I mean? There's a certain balance there. And that's what you could say about United. There's nothing overly complicated about it, but like there is a real intelligence in putting something together that makes sense, that the players feel secure in, feel good in, and can really go at it. And
Yeah.
that's not nothing at all.
No, players want that. Players want the assuredness of knowing that when I get the ball, I know where all my teammates are going to be. I know that when I'm defending, if I'm told to cut off this inside channel, I can cut off this inside channel. And if it goes outside me, it's somebody else's responsibility. And listen, everybody grows up playing 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1, or
Yeah.
some formation of it. So it's very, very normal. It's very, very natural. And also, if you do get caught out in it, there's usually another layer underneath to support it. So listen, it's very, very, very simple. But there's beauty of simplicity sometimes.
Yeah.
Now they will have some different problems moving on up the road, but confidence is a huge thing, and the confidence will be coursing through that side now. And I do envisage Manchester United having a pretty good, decent finish to the season. I think top four is almost certainly on for them now.
Yeah, looks it. I mean, that question, how has he done this so quickly? Well, he's gone for something simple. That's, the short version. Do you know much about Steve Holland? Like, it's hard to get a sense of, is he, I don't want to say the brains behind the operation, but even Roy Keane was like, okay, Steve Holland, I'm not going to have a go at him. I'll take my machine gun out on the rest of them. But Holland seems well respected in the game.
Yeah, seems to be. It's very hands-on. Obviously, puts on a really, really good session. Obviously able to deliver a session as well. Because it's one thing putting it on. I can go on YouTube and put a training session off it, but he can deliver the session. And the players obviously listen to him. And a good number two, is really, really important. And obviously, then he can just talk to the players. He looks like the type of guy that would be friendly with the players, and the players would confide in him, chat to him. And then the manager just gets to hopefully put the whole thing into place. But it's a good setup. And even Jonathan Woodgate, I mean, criticising him, the level of football that he's played at and the coaching that he's done as well. I mean, it looks a good ticket, to be honest with you. And I remember, and after all that carry on, I remember seeing something from Rio Ferdinand, who was talking about Johnny Evans knowing the players. That he was saying that, like, Johnny Evans was in the building, so he'll be able to give Michael Carrick an insight into, the inner workings of what's been going on. What was Ruben Amorim doing? Again, it seems to make sense. You got, four English coaches, or Johnny Evans from Northern Ireland, but four, players that are four ex players, and Steve as well. So it's a good fit. It's a good setup.
Yeah. And I mean, the two goals are just amazing. Amazing goals, aren't they? My God.
Yeah, and I think Arsenal would probably point to that as well, that the Zubimendi mistake and then two world-class goals.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It's happened, and you got to shovel that this week and get through it. They got a Champions League game coming up on Wednesday, and then the pressure is going to come on. I'm so happy just for us as fans to watch that Arsenal under pressure. How do they react? And will Man City manage to get the bit between their teeth?
When it comes to assessing Carrick, he's got a lot of advantages. Obviously, he's come into a very downtrodden group. There's the new manager bounce at the best of times. There's the freshness. I think Manchester United basically are playing less football than everybody around them at the moment. Like, I mean, they weren't in the San Siro playing Inter Milan during the week, so that's a huge advantage, you would think. So it's very plausible, of the 17 games he has until the end of the season, he wins a good chunk of them. He gets Champions League football. And then 17 games, you have to decide if it's all going very well. Do we say thanks but no thanks? We're going elsewhere, or do you tempt fate once again, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer style, and say, we maybe feel we shouldn't, but it's all going so well. Here you go.
Yeah, and listen, I think one advantage they have this year is Casemiro's already announced his departure, so you get to change over the midfield, and I think that they're probably coming to the end of that cycle where a lot of the players they need out of the club contracts are running out. So they might start moving a few on, and the squad has already started to be turned over. When you look at the likes of Cunha and Mbuemo, they can address the midfield in the summer with Casemiro going, and if their talent ID is as good as we hope it's going to be, then they should start turning the squad over. You should start seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. Because invariably, like all the managers, they've took all the blame. Essentially, it's the recruitment because managers can only do so much. I mean, you look at some of the players that were playing regularly for Manchester United, they were nowhere near the level either because of their age or because they just weren't good enough. So people like, I think Harry Maguire might leave the club soon. I don't know what his contract situation is. I know they enacted a clause there to give him another year, so I don't know if he's up this year. He has one more left. Maybe DeLitt will come back from injury. So listen, I think signs are going to be positive, and the issue they have with Michael Carrick now is he the man for the job or not, or do you go down that route of Thomas Tuchel? So it remains to be seen. But look, it was a good day for them yesterday. They're in a good position. That's probably half the battle for Carrick, is that the starting position isn't that bad. He's not sitting in ninth right now, and he's got to make up loads of ground.
Yeah.
Possession is 9/10 of the law, and they're there right now. So if they can stay, that'd be great for them.
It's a very tricky one because I think the majority of people, when he was announced, would have said, with a view to him getting the job permanently, no way. That's a terrible idea. And now I think the majority of those people after these two games are like, I'm just going to say nothing. It's okay. This is very interesting. I'm just going to say nothing. Like you've Roy Keane on TV afterwards saying, if he wins all 17 games, I'm still not giving it to him. So you still have the diehards saying we can't do this again. But you kind of have to watch this space a little bit at the moment, even though in your heart of hearts, a week ago you said the idea of him getting the job was ludicrous.
Yeah, listen, he's had two incredible wins, so we do need to calm down. I think this has been half the battle with Manchester United, is that like the swings of emotion. They lose two games.
Sorry, I'm saying a lot of people are saying I'm just not saying anything. That's
we've had a lot of these swings. When Ole came in and Amorim. So listen, he's done really well. Like I said, other teams will pose a different problem for him.
Yeah.
When they have to be the instigator, when they have to commit bodies forward, when they join in, when they're the ones pinning teams in. All of a sudden now the midfield looks a little bit bare because fullbacks are joining in. All of a sudden Harry Maguire now looks a little bit exposed because of the spaces. So I'm not going to get too carried away just yet.
Yeah.
I think those two games, Man City and Arsenal, were set up beautifully. And listen, the manager delivered. So I'm not criticizing. He delivered a perfect game plan in both those games. So he deserves an awful lot of credit. I didn't hear any of the stuff that was said after the game yesterday, but if he wins all 17 games, he's getting the job. In fact, I think if he got Champions League football, he's got a good chance of getting the job.
Yeah.
One
last quick one. This is hard to know unless you're on the inside. But so take, for instance, the fullbacks. Take Dalot, who for numerous games over this season and maybe beyond, but certainly this season, even under Fletcher, like it's not just a Ruben Amorim thing against, was it Bournemouth? They were terrible. Was that Fletcher's first game? Oh, they were so bad. Yeah. Burnley. And like there's examples of ball out to winger and Dalot, 10 metres off him and just like cross it. No, and yet the last two games he's right in their face. He's, sprinting out to them. Is that attitude? Is that there's something about the system whereby he feels more free to go, or he's been told to go and maybe wasn't necessarily being told to get out before, though it's strange to think he wasn't being told to get out and close player down. But someone like Dallow's emblematic maybe of this slight shift we've seen in the last couple of games where maybe it's fear, I don't know, respect for a Doku over a Burnley player. What's your read on like that aspect, that kind of pressure and work rate and all that kind of stuff? Is that they feel more free in the system, or is it attitude, or is it hard to tell?
I think when you put it in the system, people like Dalot are probably one that benefits most from a simplified game plan. Right. When the ball goes here, you go. Don't worry about what's behind you because that's somebody else's problem. And then he addresses the problem behind. So he gives them the license to go I think when you get caught in grey areas, he kind of panics. You also got to look at the centre backs playing alongside him. Me being the centre back, the last thing you want is your full back racing out because now it leaves space down the side for you. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Whereas like if you got two sixes in front of you, you can say, okay, Dallo, you can go and release to the full back.
six
Harry
fill.
Maguire, you can
Yeah.
just slide along into the channel. And by the way, don't worry about the one behind you because Casemiro can fill that hole or Martinez will come across. So the structures are in place.
Okay.
So now Dallo has comfort that when the ball goes to the wide player, he can release. Now, if the ball gets transferred inside and the structure behind him isn't right, he's not going to get blamed for that. It's the people behind him.
Yeah.
So it's just the comfort of like, don't be afraid. You go and do this, and then I'll set it up correctly behind you. So it's a game plan. It's a simplified game plan.
Mm.
Confidence is taken from that. But yeah, I mean, he done really, really well. He's a good defender. I think he was asked to perform a role that he wasn't capable of under the previous manager. Insofar as he had to provide an attacking threat, he was right wing back, or he played various positions, I suppose, under him. But no, he played well, played really, really well,
Okay.
and United played really well and deserved the 6 points.
Okay. So inside him, you were saying, Diogo, stay, stay,
100%.
don't go near him, sit.
Self-preservation, Joe.
um, Liverpool just worthy of a mention at the Vitality Stadium. They lost 3-2. So, I mean, it was never overly convincing, their form. The 0-0 Leeds, January 1st, 2-2 away to Fulham. The draw with Arsenal 0-0. The draw with Burnley 1-0. Marseille away was obviously a very good result, 3-0. And now Bournemouth 3-2 with Carrick and Newcastle to come. This first goal, like, it's Van Dijk again, Damien.
Mm.
He's either like finished in terms of what he was, finished, or for some reason he's just playing with the intensity of kind of an over 40s five-a-side. It's actually bizarre what's happened to him this season. I know Canada has been terrible alongside him, and he's, you look worse, I'm sure, in a failing system all around you. But there's what was once 7-8 years ago, my God, he's just so like, he's the daddy out
Rolls
there. He's
Royce,
so
isn't it? Yeah.
relaxed. He doesn't sweat. The man doesn't sweat. That now has morphed into, is he trying? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, like I mean, look, he's got a lot of miles on the clock, and there was a period there for 4 or 5 years where he was the world's premier centre back, for a long time, and he could be coming to the end of that cycle. He could have peaked, and he could just be falling off right now, and it certainly looks that way. It could be a tiredness issue, it's a concentration issue. When you get tired, the concentration goes. So he could be coming to the end of that cycle. So Liverpool now are starting to see the warning signs. So they might think next summer we can still cash in on him. We can get money. So that's the choice that they're going to have. Like I said, similar to like Mo Salah, in him last year, his numbers were still high, whereas he's had a huge fall off this year. So I think Liverpool now could start saying, can we recoup some money for Van Dijk? Because I'm sure he would, rock up at an AC Milan or Juventus, and they'd pay 70 million quid for him. And you go, listen, we've had a huge level of service out of him. Or do you hang on with him? But he looks really, really sluggish. He looks really, really slow. He looks a little bit, he looks fatigued mentally and physically. He just doesn't look in tune with what's going on there. He's been on the rev limiter for a long time, and you can only stay there for a certain period of time. Your mind and your body. And like I said, he was the world's best centre back for a number of years, and he could just be coming to the end of that cycle. Now, is there an Indian summer in him? Can he find some form between now and the end of the season? But now Liverpool will be looking to his replacement. They might eke another year out of him next year, put this year down to a down year. But like the cracks have appeared, and they're only going to get bigger now. And unfortunately, that just happens. It's just, I mean, people point to his age. Ages can be a little bit tricky to look at. You got to look at miles on the clock, and where he's been. He has been on the rev limiter, and you can only stay there for so long. And I think the first cracks in him are starting to appear now. And either Liverpool cash in the summer, or they try and insulate him, get a system in place where he's not getting exposed. Because before, you could just leave Van Dijk, you didn't have to worry about him, even if there was no six in front of him or there was no fullback. His decision making, his physical prowess was so good that you didn't have to worry about him. But do you now not start needing to compensate for him and start protecting him a little bit, drop the line a little bit deeper, get someone in front of him a little bit more so he's not being exposed. He also has to understand that he's maybe not at the level that he was at. He might need to adjust his game. He's probably still trying to defend in the mode that he was 3 years ago. And he might need to accept, I'm not as quick, I'm not as mobile, I can't cover the ground in the way that I used to. I can't accelerate. My acceleration seems to be gone. And a lot of it seems to be with him. His acceleration just seems to be not what it used to be. So these are questions that Liverpool need to answer. But on an overall Liverpool thing, I don't I don't think any Liverpool fan could complain about the transfer window in the summer. I'm sure someone will look back and we're talking about holding, but you're swapping out Frimpong for Trent, Ekitike for Diaz, and Isak for Nunes. I mean, like it was the transfer window of all transfer windows. It just was. I mean, we were all going, "Oh my God!" With the exception of Trent, and we thought we might miss him at right back, and but then you think, okay, if Frimpong's going to add something different. Unfortunately, we're now realizing how important Luis Diaz was to Liverpool and just his Tasmanian devil
Big
type
time.
performances,
Big time.
which is what they were over on that left hand side. Hard to replicate that. But I think when the window shut, where everyone's going into the season, think it's Liverpool's, with Isak at the top end of the pitch, Ekitike from the left, Salah from the right, Frimpong at right back, but there's just been too many players have had a huge fall off. Van Dijk, as we just spoke about, Gravenberch, McAllister, Zabazlai is probably the only one playing at the same level that he was. I mean, Kirkes is coming to the fore now. I think he's starting to have a really good season for Liverpool after a shaky start. Ekitike has been brilliant. Obviously, Isak's been injured. Salah's, well, won't go into those issues. But I think the manager's in trouble. I really do. I think he's in trouble, and not because of the way they're playing. I think he's in trouble just the way he's talking. The stuff about the low block. Like every time I listen to it, it is painful. I mean, he must be on 12 million a year. He's sitting complaining. Like if you're an owner and you're paying him 10 million a year and you're just saying, oh, well, I've been stumped, the low block's got me.
But there's this new thing where like
yeah, can't figure it out,
he is talking about it like it's a new difficult nut to crack in football. Like I've never come across this before.
And listen, we went down this whole road with Stephen Kenny, and the way manager talks in public, it rubs off on the team. When the manager was always, not to get back into the Ireland stuff, but saying it's not our fault. The players can tend to go, oh yeah, maybe it's not our fault. The player now listening, oh, we can't break down a low block, we're just not good enough. I mean, it was a comment last week. I'm paraphrasing here. You might have the exact quote, but it was like, set piece for a moment of magic is the only way to break down a low block. And I'm going, wow.
It was very much what can you do? Like it's numbers. You just got to.
Not my fault.
Hope it's a grave. You got to just hope something happens. And look, there's a nub of a point in that. Sometimes numbers game. I'm sure you've been part of many a Palace low block, and the keeper has a great game and makes 8 saves, and you get a few blocks in, and you kind of think, it was close and we came out the right side of it. That can happen, but it can't be this business of I don't know you can't crack that problem. You just have to hope. It's not that doesn't
amazing.
Tally. Yeah,
it's like the way he's speaking. Like if you're the owner or director, whoever he reports to, you would be ripping him over the coals for that. Yeah. Like, we're not paying you 10 million a year to give me an excuse that you can't break down a low block. You've got Florian Wirtz, you've got players that can do it. Like, there is ways. We covered the Man City Wolves game on the weekend. I was at commentary for Premier. Like, I don't know if anyone saw it, but textbook how you beat a low block the way Man City played. They're so used to it. The tempo, the energy that they have. Arsenal don't have a problem with low blocks because of what I just said earlier about the sheer weight of the team, right? They're pinning them in, sustained periods of pressure. I think teams that are defending against Liverpool now are getting out way too easy. One long ball, one scuffed clearance, and all of a sudden it goes into the number 9. He holds it, he sets it for a midfield player, and then, the back four get a breather. You can't underestimate what a 20-second breather as a defender gets you, right? I mean, even if you go into a statistics point of view, like your heart rate could be screaming in the red zone. If you get 20 seconds, it's down to the point where you are now recovering. You're getting down to maybe 150 beats per minute, which is, you can operate at that level. What you want to do is get defenders in the red zone and keep them there, keep their heart rates, because that's when mistakes happen. And that's, when you're operating at a high intensity like Arsenal, your heart rate's screaming and it cracks. That's why, because players can't stay on that rev limiter for too long.
Yeah.
Whereas at Liverpool, they just seem to get out. And again, I don't like the way they play. It's too slow. I mean, you said I played in low blocks, right? And you said to me, what was tough when you played against teams and you're in low block against one of the top teams? The intensity. They never let up. And it was that, like, you go down one side, right? And just to get into the bones, if you go down, the opposition go down one side, right? Everyone has to adjust. Everyone has to slide across, right? And you're trying to stay compact, keep the gaps narrow. They go back to point, they go out the other side. We've all got to transfer 40 yards across the pitch, right? And you just keep doing that. And then what you're hoping is, as it's transferring across, one centre-back moves quicker than the other, the gap's appeared. Somebody switches off, they don't fill it, right? So then when it comes back into the central midfield player, now there's gaps appearing. Also, you're trying to fire balls into little pockets of space, because for every pass, we have to react, right? So if the ball goes in front of me, I have to come out. It's only 5 yards, I've got to sprint 5 yards. He bounces it first time back to where it came from. I've now got to retreat back in, okay? Somebody makes a run across the front of me. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I got to track it. So
Yeah.
I've got to sprint 15 yards. All of a sudden, there's a hole now opened up. Somebody else comes into that hole. So you're trying to move the low block around. And Man City are incredible at it. Ryan Cherky was just brilliant on the weekend, and Rodri looked brilliant. Now, I know it's only Wolves, so I'm not overpraising City, but it's a low block, and Wolves have caused a lot of teams problems with their low block. They're getting draws against United, Liverpool. They've caused problems. City just dismantled it in a heartbeat. Just going down one side, coming back to Rodri, firing into Turkey, bouncing it back to Rodri, and all of a sudden you always know the signs when you see Wolves players pointing at each other, pointing at spaces. I was doing that. Well, I had to do that. This is the level of confusion. So for him to come out and say, just set pieces are a moment of magic, it's insanity.
Yeah.
Like I would imagine he's been reprimanded over that, and that like an elite manager saying something like that is just almost like it's a red rag to every team. Going, geez, lads are struggling with low
They
block
don't
here,
like
so
it.
should
Yeah.
we do it?
Yeah. I take about 12 to 15 minutes to come out of the red zone, but each to their own. Each to their own. Just one last one on Liverpool. All the changes he makes. Some of it is injury enforced, I'm sure, but Wirtz is popping around right across those three, sometimes centrally, sometimes on the wings. Szoboszlai's done stints on the right hand side, particularly when Salah was away. But to be fair, also when Salah was just out of the team, he'll be brave to take Salah out of the team again. Whether he dares to admit it or not, he'll just know, God, this guy's tricky to take out of the team. But so he's kind of shifting a lot around. Like, it's not that set team with Liverpool. A lot of the same players, give or take, but it's like, no, you do a stint here for me, you go there, you go there. Is he kind of a bit lost trying to find a best team?
Yeah.
It's not just this is the way I do it now. He's trying to find it.
He is scrambling. He is looking for like a combination that clicks.
Yeah, okay.
That's exactly what that is. I mean, it's almost sort of, please, something
happen. Yeah.
I need to find a groove here. And it's just not happening, and it's obviously not happening because McAllister's not anywhere near the level neither as Gravenberch or Van Dijk. And obviously Luis Diaz going out of the team. Isak is a big miss because a lot of the time, Isak will get you the goals that can kind of cover up a couple of mediocre performances. So, he's scrambling right there.
Okay. Last word on Crystal Palace.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone, I think, has a soft spot for Palace. And the last couple of years, a sense that they're brilliantly run. I spoke to you a couple of years ago. You gave us a great overview of how they wanted to almost dominate South London and hoover up all the best talent and become the academy in South London, which, is not... dominated by lots of Premier League clubs. Glasner's come in, seems to be a great manager, the FA Cup success, and to just watch it unravel, I suppose, it feels like over these 2 months is almost sad. Glasner, I'm done, I'm gone at the end of the season. Eze gone. Like, what? You're a season ticket holder at Palace. Like, what a sickener it is to not watch Eze every week. Then Mark Gay goes. Mateta says, actually, I don't want to play here anymore either. This club is not meeting my ambition. They're not winning games anymore. What's the word behind the scenes? What's going on?
Well, look, first of all, they're in danger of getting dragged into a relegation battle. I think that West Ham win on the weekend has just shook everybody up because now all of a sudden they're 8 points and they're in free fall. They need to find, I would say, 10 points from somewhere. And you can't see it coming because they got 2 European games coming up against a Bosnian team. We've all seen what their Premier League record is after Europe. They're 0%. They don't win the week on the Sunday after the Thursday game. And if those teams below them pick up another couple of points and they get cut to 3 or 4, they are in serious trouble. I think the manager. Okay, so first of all, just a review on what they were trying to do, right? All the things we said there. You look south of the river in London. There's from Charlton, Millwall, Crystal Palace. That's it. So it's not, you have like Bromley, you have Wimbledon, you have Sutton, you have maybe Crawley, teams, but they're all, in terms of reasonable sized clubs. So they have the pick of South London. They've spent 30 million on their academy. They're getting young players into their academy. They're buying cheap, selling high. That was the overall game plan. You can't get upset now when you're executing everything that you said you were going to do. So, I mean, the manager signed up. And I'm sure he was told, look, this is the club that we are. We're going to buy players out of the championship for reasonable money. We're going to give them in the first team, increase their value and sell them. We're going to get our academy kids through because we are now hoovering up. We're a Category 1 academy in South London. We're probably the only one south of the river. So we're going to hoover up all that talent that was going to, BT did a documentary. I think Rio did it, but all the talented players that came out of South London, the likes of Jadon Sancho, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. It is that cage football they have there. The population in Croydon is 1.1 million. So That's what he went after. And the academy is stacked with players that are trying to get into the first team now, and there are players coming through. It probably happened just a little bit quick this year, insofar as, you know, Eze going and Gahey going. But again, you got to look from Steve Parish's point of view. In January, we're going to lose an asset for nothing in 5 months. Now, at the time in January, he probably felt, well, we're not going to get relegated, right? So I'd rather have 20 million quid rather than keep Mark Gahey. So he sold him. But then the manager was just completely just almost throwing him under the bus, just saying that, like, no, I understand the manager's personal ambition, and he felt like they won the FA Cup first time in Europe. Spend, let's go. But Steve is stuck strong to his principles. Now, whether he's right or wrong for doing that, you know, we can, the fans can argue the bones of that. But he stuck to his principles, his game plan of what he said the club was going to be: young talent, unheralded stars out of the Championship, get them in the first team and sell them for a higher price. They're executing everything that they said they wanted to do. They're more than likely they're going to be a Premier League team next year. They get an opportunity now to get young kids in. They get an opportunity now to test their scouting system. Insofar as the players that can vote, that came in on the weekend, who was desperately unlucky for the penalty that was given against him. But, you know, so he's going to come in. Can he be the next Mark Gahey? You know, can you get the likes of, you know, Ismail Assar or Jeremy Pino? Can they be the next ones that we can increase their value? So it's a tough model, but that's what they said they were going to do. So you can't really get upset if you're doing everything that you said you were going to do.
Yeah, it feels like Glasner saying, I'm gone at the end of the season, you know, and we know about lame duck managers. That's
I think he's in trouble.
That's the switch, actually. Like, Parish may have to say, I can't have
I think that's
to go.
Listen, Monday morning, that's being discussed right now.
Yeah.
You know, can we keep going with this, or do we need a fresh voice? Because if the manager, I mean, publicly he seems to be, you know, throwing the towel in. You know, if his demeanor in training is the same, then the players will feed off that, and the bottom will fall out of this very, very quickly. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if the meetings this morning are centered around that, and he's been called in and saying, listen, you in the end of the season?
Yeah.
Or do we just pull the plug now? Because if you're not in, we're not quite clear of relegation yet. I think even 2 weeks ago, it wasn't even thought of, because there was 28 points and West Ham were on maybe 14, you know, so it was like, we're fine, we 14-point gap, but now it's cut to 8. So it is kind of, you know, ask the question time. So I wouldn't be surprised if something that happened this week. But at the same point, you know, the owner, very astute, very, very good at reading people. He's very good at understanding where people are at mentally. I think that's what he's very, very good at, is he can sit down with someone, he can get he's a good instinct for people. And I think if he sits across from Oliver Glasner this morning and he even gets a hint that he's thrown the towel in, then I think he will pull the trigger. I mean, he's proved that over the years, that he is devastatingly efficient and ruthless when he needs to be, you know.
Well, I'm no psychologist, but I'm sensing a hint of I've thrown the towel in by his comments. I mean, it's not exactly he's not keeping it close to his chest. He's like, I hate this place.
Yeah. Can he salvage it? Can he talk him round?
Yeah. He may have to say, listen, you've had your sulk. What's it
exactly.
Be?
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. So
dude, that's awesome. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks.